Well, again, thanks for having me out today. I think our Buck wrestling season has run, a fairly parallel season to the Buck basketball season. I think, as Coach Haynes mentioned, they started out a little bit rough at the beginning, as did the wrestling team, and they had their, win streak right through the middle, and I've tailed off maybe somewhat up till recently, and very, very similar to what happened with the Buck wrestling program. Didn't have our lineup quite where we wanted to go at the beginning of the season. Had several guys out of the lineup for whatever reasons they were out, and without those guys in the lineup, we knew we were going to struggle, and we did. But on the other side of things, some of the younger kids that stepped in for them, he got a lot of valuable experience, and were able to compete at a level that, although maybe they weren't ready for, they now know what they have to prepare for in future years. Once we got some of those guys back in the lineup, kind of put some of the pieces together, we were able to kind of go ahead and start winning a few duels. I think we won we were 2-2 at the Yankton Invite, which was the first time we actually kind of had our lineup somewhat in order, and we were able then to go on a roll and beat Watertown, Mitchell, and Brandon Valley in the ESD competition. Brandon Valley was one of the teams that beat us earlier in the year, so we were able to come back and get them in a close one at home for the ESD season. And after that, then we kind of went and we run into a few buzzsaws by the names of Sturgis, Stevens, and Central. And they did what they do, which is put very quality kids on the mat all the way up and down the lineup. And that was during the East-West duels. And I told our kids, with the lineup that we have, we really need to do a lot of juggling around. It's a lot of it's a chess game somewhat. You have to, quite frankly, kind of hope to win the flip at the beginning of the duel in order to get the choices that you want. And we were very lucky with Watertown and Brandon Valley, because that's really one of the big parts that really decided those duels. We were able to win the flip, so we were able to kind of put guys where we wanted them to be at, and it worked out in our favor. I told the guys when we went to the ESD duels and we were wrestling Stevens, Central, and Sturgis that I was not going to be moving the lineup around. I wanted, it wasn't necessarily about which team ended up with the most points on the scoreboard in the duel. I wanted to see the individual matchups that we could possibly see at state wrestling tournament time, which as a dual team, it definitely hurts us. There's no doubt about it, but we were, of the opinion that we want to see those matchups. We were able to see them. I thought we competed very, very well. I think, as a matter of fact, I think 2 of the 3 duels that we wrestled against Stevens, Sturgis, and Central, in 2 of those duels, I believe we won more of the head-to-head matchups than we lost. And so, although the scoreboard looked ugly, if you just take a step back and take a look at it on paper, I thought the kids competed very, very well. As a matter of fact, Spencer Huber defeated the number 2 wrestler in the state with a broken collarbone, 11-4. And so he was wrestling at a super high level. Casey Skillenstad's wrestling very, very well right now with the top kids, and many of our seniors as well. Matt Huber's wrestling very well. C.J. Warren, Matt Huber, C.J. Warren, James Heesick, Tom Cruz, Royce Reiser. And so we were happy, although the results were kind of lopsided out there, we were happy the way they wrestled. This week we had the opportunity to wrestle up in Brookings at one of the bigger tournaments that we wrestle in. I believe there's 17 A teams there. I think we only had about 9 guys up to wrestle at that tournament, as opposed to 14. And I was with those 9 guys, and we had 2 of our biggest point scorers not wrestling. We think we placed 10th out of 17, and I think with those 2 guys in the lineup, we probably would have been up around 5 or 6, in my opinion. We left a lot of points off the board by resting a couple guys. We finish up the season here, the regular season here this week, with a duel against Pierre here at home. And then we get on the road right away Friday morning again, head up to Aberdeen to wrestle a very talented Aberdeen squad as well. And that will wrap up our regular season, I guess is what I call it. And we finish up with the ESD individual tournament at Mitchell, and then the region tournament in Lenox, and the state tournament in Watertown. So our season is very rapidly coming to an end. And this is the time of the season that we spend the first 3 months preparing for. We talk about it almost on a daily basis, and I don't think our guys have peaked just quite yet, which is good in my opinion. I think their peak is still coming. They're working very, very hard in the room. I've been very proud of the effort that they've had in practice. It's probably been one of the hardest working groups of guys that we've had here in the last 2, 3, 4 years. Maybe not the most talented group, but they are definitely working very hard, so I've been very happy with that. Our last home duel, that, as I mentioned, is Pier coming to town Thursday night. One of the best, maybe the best dual team in the state. Definitely either the number 1 or 2 tournament team in the state as well. Kind of flip-flop between Rapid City Central and Pier right now, and those 2 teams are head and tails above, a step above everybody else. They're clear-cut first and second. It would take a miracle for those 2 teams not to turn out 1 and 2. In my opinion, everybody else is kind of fighting for 3rd place. Looking at things, we had an upset earlier this year, 106 pounds, or Noah Vetter beat the Pier wrestler, who I believe is rated top 3. Noah Vetter's already defeated him 1 time this year. Should be a good match. Casey Skillenstad has taken the number 1 rated wrestler to a 1 or 2 point match every time he's ever wrestled the guy. So he's wrestling very, very well right now. Matt Huber is one of our seniors right through the middle, which is our strength. We're looking for a big match from him, and there's big key matchups at 160 and 170 pounds with James Hesick and CJ Warren, who are starting to come along. We count on those seniors for some leadership. We count on those seniors for to set the tone in the duels, and hopefully they come out and do that Thursday night. Our numbers actually are very good. I believe right now on the mat on a daily basis we have 5 seniors, 4 juniors, 6 sophomores, 16 freshmen, and I bring up 1 8th grader to wrestle each day. And so I believe every day we have 32 kids in the room, which on a daily basis, everybody's been showing up every single day. Those are not bad numbers for us. I'd love to have 55. But the bottom line is we haven't had 55 in years, and so kind of have to adjust our train of thought a little bit there. I'm happy with 32, especially with the 32 that we have that have been working very, very hard. We have grades 6, 7, and 8 at the middle school. We've got just about 40 kids in the room, not on a daily basis because many of those 6th graders are playing basketball and wrestling both at the same time. And so one day they might wrestle, the next day they go play basketball, one day they might wrestle, just kind of go back and forth. And that's perfectly fine, gives those guys just, one of the biggest things, I teach 6th grade PE, so I talk to those kids all the time about, their interest in wrestling. And oftentimes the number 1 reason why a kid may not want to go out for wrestling is, well, I've never done it before, I don't know how. And I tell them, perfect, it's just the way we like you. Okay, because we'll teach you everything you have to know in order to be successful out on that wrestling mat. And you don't have to have been wrestling your entire life in order to step out on the mat and have a successful season. I've had several wrestlers just recently. Jake Dempsey is one of those kids. Some of you might remember, state runner-up for me his senior year. His freshman year was his first year that he ever saw a wrestling mat, and stepped on. And I remember it very well. His freshman year, he's wrestling the JV side of the mat, and he was defeated at the Yankton Invitational, which is their 2nd term of the season, probably his 6th match of his entire life. And he got beat, and he came off, and he was so upset, telling me how horrible he was, and didn't know why he was supposed to be out on that mat, and beating himself up, like crazy. You need to turn I had to turn myself from a coach to a psychologist at the time, which Coach Schaefer will tell you I'm not good at. I'm horrible at it. And which is probably a good thing. I had Coach Schaefer probably sitting right beside me at the time. Otherwise, Jake probably would have walked off the mat. Bottom line is he stuck with it. By the time he ended his senior season, he's one of the best wrestlers in Yankton history. And that kid, if he would have had a couple more years, would have been phenomenal. And so you don't have to have had wrestled your entire life in order to come out and be a very important part of a program, and a program that I think has been very successful over the past many years.